Welcome to a new you. Have you ever wondered what defines an acquired brain injury? An often heard term, its reality is actually quite complex. An acquired brain injury is any damage occurring to the brain after birth, and it can happen to anyone at any time. The paths leading to a brain injury are incredibly diverse. It can be the sudden result of a traumatic accident. It can develop gradually through underlying health conditions or even lifestyle factors that can take a silent toll over time.
Brain injury was created because I had surgery, brain surgery, to remove a brain tumour that was on my brainstem. And it was the size of a large orange. And the brainstem was very small, about the size of your thumb. And this was that size.
So, where was it in your brainstem?
It was right on it.
So, was it at the back of your neck? So, was it below
And
your
the-
skull?
Yes, I think it's in the cerebral pons area.
Cerebral pons. Okay.
And so in that midbrain, I think they call it. And how can I say, most of it was removed, but the roots remained. And it wasn't until 2012 that they discovered that it had started to grow again. And so after that, I continued to have MRIs every year, and until about 2016, I found that it was growing faster, and so that's when I decided I'd try a whole food, plant-based diet. And since that time, or really it was about 2018, it became stable, and so it's just about the size of a 20-cent piece now.
An amount of travel that I went from 1978 to 83, and I wound up in some country areas like Nimbin, New South Wales, and possibly Byron Bay and Mullumbimby. And at that stage I was on the binge with wine, and marijuana. And I was mixing the both and wound up sort of like exposed to the elements. I was living in a car, station wagon, but exposed to the extreme cold in that. And I sort of like got broke down with the mixture of the alcohol, marijuana and the elements. So I sort of like noticed something about myself then and thought, this is like a sort of a broken person I've turned into.
So it was a gradual process.
It was gradual, but it was like being on the binge continually and noticing that there were certain things that was going wrong, and that my health was declining and all that. But I eventually got away from there and come back to Melbourne, my home base, where I was educated in Melbourne. And I sort of pulled myself out of it, and I've been abstinent alcohol and marijuana for 20 years now. So I've got right past it. But I believe there's some reference to brain refurbishment from going away from it,
Yeah.
There is another major cause which can often strike without warning, and this is a stroke. This can occur in an instant, cutting off vital blood flow to the brain and resulting in an acquired injury that brings its own unique set of challenges. Whether you or a loved one have navigated this path, or you are simply trying to better understand the fragility of our health, it is a topic that demands our attention.
3 years ago, I had a stroke. It was a Friday morning, and I woke up, threw about the dinner, stood up, and standing next to the bed, I realized my arm felt funny. There's no pain, just funny. So swinging my arm, trying to work out what's wrong. My wife said, "Are you okay?" And I turned to say, "I don't know what's wrong," and went, "Woo!" And you think, shit, that's not good. So you're high as a kite. So I had a stroke. Then it's a sliding doors moment that propels you into another world. And I found that advocacy for stroke and brain injuries is become a passion for me. Thus, I'm here.
Well, that's wonderful to hear because, as I just said before, you're relatively young in head injury years. You're only 3 years.
3 years.
So that's quite interesting. I often think about the comparison between traumatic brain injury and stroke, which they're essentially damage to the brain, but it seems to me that stroke people kind of, I think, a little bit more cognitively there in a way that traumatic brain injury might not be. Or am I? Why don't you educate me?
I'm not an expert to be able to educate. I think for starters, you can have a stroke and have clot retrieval or clot busting drugs and not have permanent damage to the brain so much. If you miss the 3 to 4 hour window, like I did, I was asleep, I've got a permanent dead patch. Luckily for me, the location is speech and fine motor skills right hand. So chopsticks are a no-no. But I've met stroke guys who have a much worse brain damage than me because it really depends on where the clot lodges in the brain. So it's luck of the draw, unfortunately.
So I'm what you call a baby in the brain injury world. My injury was only 3 years ago.
Wow.
So I just moved to a new house. It was Australia Day. So I've just had my anniversary, my 3rd anniversary in 2021. And I woke up and I really thought there was someone else in the bed with me. I picked up what I now know was my own limb, but I thought it was someone else's limb. And then I rolled out of bed and fell out of bed. And I think about an hour or two later, my then partner came and picked me up off the floor. And I said, I really need to go to the bathroom. And so I picked me up because I couldn't get up. And he knew straight away that I had a stroke because I had all the signs. I had slurred speech, I had a facial droop, I've got left-sided weakness, and I couldn't move my left side of my body very well, so I was dragging my left leg. So I was very fortunate in that I was in that time frame, which is really crucial. The first couple of hours after a stroke is crucial. So the stroke ambulance came to my home, they scanned my brain, the images then get sent to the Royal Melbourne Hospital, and then on arrival, I was given a clot retrieval, and basically that saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that would have been in COVID as well.
It was. So
we were in lockdown?
I think we were in that period, if you remember, where we're in between lockdowns.
Yeah.
So we'd had Christmas, and I think it was just before we were about to shut back down. But we'd bought our house like in the lockdown.
Yeah.
So it was an auction online, basically. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I won't go into real estate because now I'm busting to ask you questions
Yeah.
about that process. But okay, so how did the stroke affect you?
Okay, so I had a right prefrontal cortex stroke. So it means that I've got left-sided weakness. And the way initially it affected me, it affected my speech. I had difficulty, I had some speech therapy post-injury. And I had left-sided weakness, so I needed to build back strength on my left side, and fine motor skills were also affected. But that's really, my injury is probably quite invisible because I only stayed in hospital a very short amount of time. Like I was in there for less than a week.
Wow.
So I literally in there Australia Day, and then I was out before my kids started school for the first time.
Oh gosh.
Autism, or autism spectrum disorder, is a lifelong neurodevelopmental condition that affects how a person perceives, communicates, and interacts with the world. It's called a spectrum because it impacts individuals in highly diverse ways, ranging from mild support needs to requiring profound, lifelong care.
My name is Edward Rusak. I am a singer-songwriter based in Melbourne. I'm 25 years old at the moment. I have autism, and I like to write songs.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. So what brought you to start writing songs?
Being exposed to music at a very young age, having instruments in the house, and hearing music on TV and on the radio. And I was inspired by the music around me, and I thought, hey, I want to express myself through music. I want to start writing my own music.
Excellent. So did your parents encourage you?
They were supportive of me.
Okay. How do you find that it helps you with your journey through life? Does it help you ride the waves?
Yes, it helps me express myself and my thoughts on the world and what I'm feeling.
My name is Zoe Simmons. I am a journalist, copywriter, editor, author, speaker, disability advocate, human rights ambassador. I do a lot of things basically, but generally just trying to combine my love of storytelling and lived experience of having multiple disabilities, including being autistic and having mental health challenges. So I do my best to combine those and make a difference however I can, which is really cool.
And how did you get here? How give me a little bit of your life story up until now, and what motivated you to head down this path?
Well, I've always been interested in advocacy and trying to make a difference from a young age. I experienced not great mental health experiences and some trauma, so I was always quite passionate about that, especially when I learned how stigmatized mental health is, when people say things like, oh, that's so shameful or embarrassing, or don't say that. And when I started developing chronic pain and chronic illness and physical disability and starting to use things like mobility aids, I noticed even more that stigma and that ableism and people saying all sorts of horrible things like, oh, don't call yourself that. And it just really showed me that things are bad and we really need to make a difference. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to combine my skills, to raise awareness, to be the squeaky wheel, to try and create change however I can, and help other people know that they belong as well, even if they struggle with their minds and their lives and their people around them, you know.
What gave you the strength to take pride in and own your identity in its totality?
I guess that's a bit of a tricky question. I guess the strength I got is from the challenges I have experienced, having experienced multiple kinds of trauma, having lived through a bushfire as a disabled person, having survived a suicide attempt, and then I guess transmuting those experiences into something powerful that can create change. I feel like that's where I found my strength, and I guess it was when I started sharing and connecting with people and other people told me, oh, your words really helped me, I needed that. That's what really made me think, okay, because if something that's affecting me, it's probably affecting others. So I think of, for other people I will fight, other people I will persist.
Dedicated to it, and something comes out every day, and you were saying it seems like advocacy in motion. Thank you for all the compliments, by the way. And that's how it's affected me. So being late diagnosed, you don't get any support throughout life with your disability, and as such you learn to self-advocate. And then on top of that, having children with disabilities that were also late diagnosed, you learn a trick or two. So my hope is, with my posts on LinkedIn in particular, is sharing that with other persons so that they can have those tools to be able to self-advocate. And how it's affected my business is, it is my business. So, I run EduLinked. Prior to that, I worked with Team Musicaid. And the purpose of EduLinked is to provide equity for, in particular, neurodivergent persons, and to help them to self-advocate where possible, instead of being advocated for or advocated on top of. Being advocated to can leave you more vulnerable.
Well, it's paternalistic, isn't it? Ultimately, it's taking the power away.
Absolutely. And I think, there's a lot of economic benefit to keeping persons with disabilities dependent. And so the purpose of EduLinked is to utilise, in particular, technology, artificial intelligence, to try and improve that, really give persons with disability freedom and access to the information themselves so that they can advocate for themselves. Yeah.
Navigating the aftermath of a brain injury can feel overwhelming, but it's important to know that you don't have to face it alone. There is a whole landscape of professional support designed to help you regain your independence and quality of life. From speech pathologists who help you find your voice again, to dedicated support workers who assist with the rhythm of your daily living, and legal experts who help you navigate the complexities of your rights and entitlements. These services are the building blocks of recovery. It is about assembling a team that sees you as a whole person, ensuring you have the right tools to rebuild, reconnect, and to move forward.
So I guess speech pathology, when you first kind of hear the name, it sort of talks about speech, and I guess my big mantra is it's more about communication. So speech pathology as a profession, it's about talking, listening, concentrating, being part of social relationships, how you are with your friends, your family, with your workmates. So it's a really lovely, broad area to be able to work in, and I guess that's what's kept me involved for a really long period of time. And I was just really lucky enough to get started way back as a green young clinician into the area of brain injury rehab. And I just really liked the fact that it was a new area. There was lots of new learning about directions and what's the best way for people to support these clients who have had brain injuries. What can rehabilitation do? So it was a really exciting and interesting area to work in with lots of flexibility for us as professionals to learn and I guess forge a pathway in rehabilitation. So I've kind of stuck with it over all of that period of time. So obviously the way rehab is now is so completely different to how rehab was when I started, 40 years ago or something. And it's been just such an interesting journey for me, and I hope along the way that I've been able to support the people that I work with and their families and the wider circles that they all move in to understand a little bit more about what's been happening for them and work collaboratively to try and forge some better pathways for people along the way.
Appropriate dispute resolution. So I guess to explain what that means, it's alternatives to going to court. So that includes mediation as one method where people take more ownership of the process compared to going to court where people usually don't have any ownership. The judge decides what the decision will be and people have to live with that decision. So the mediator really is somebody who has a particular skill set and helps the parties to see each other's perspectives and, if possible, come to a mutual agreement and resolve the matter without going to court.
Without the need for court.
Yes.
That would be ideal, wouldn't it?
I began with ADR and then I sort of gradually pivoted to access to justice and ADR. So I'm looking at how people who are neurodivergent, and in particular people with autism or autistic people, and how they experience the mediation process, which is a part of the broader legal process because it's so integrated into our legal system.
So I'm interested because autism expresses itself in different ways in different people. So how is it possible to come up with a one-size-fits-all approach?
No, it's not. I think if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So we recognise that everybody is unique. whether they have autism or not. So it doesn't matter really from that sense, in that sense. But I think what we were interested in this research was how do autistic people experience mediation? What kind of challenges do they face in that process? Do they experience any positives in the process, or did they? And what can be done to the mediation process to make it more accommodating of autistic people? So what can be improved and what can be adjusted? And our research is really just scratching the surface of this area, because I don't think there's much research that's been done to date at all. It's very scant research. So I'm hoping that this kind of opens the door to that, and that more people will research this area and look at different neurodivergences and how their needs are met or not met in the legal system more broadly.
Been working with Kevin for about 18 months. Normally involves driving Kevin to his meetings that he goes to on quite a frequent basis, and really enjoy the time that I do spend with Kevin.
How is it working so intimately with people?
Yeah, well, doing the support work, you certainly get to know the participant really well. You get to know their families as well, and because you spend so much time with the participant, you find out a lot about them. So, which I really enjoy, hearing that.
Now, you were a paramedic before. What brought you to support work?
Yeah, I spent most of my adult life or working life working with Ambulance Victoria. A couple of years ago, decided to have a career change. At the time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. It was only that I had a conversation with my neighbour who has a son with a disability, and she suggested that I might be a good fit for support work. It's something that I sort of investigated with her help, and I thought, yes, it was something that I would enjoy, and that's the line that I've gone down.
No, it's wonderful, because I know I owe my life to paramedics, and that sort of a position and that sort of a energy and that sort of a demand must be so intense. It must be so intense. Did you find yourself getting burnt out as a paramedic?
Being a paramedic, it certainly has its moments. It's not all doom and gloom, but yeah, it certainly has its moments where people are very unwell, and I certainly don't miss that really, doing what I'm doing now.
Hi, I'm Yanula and I'm the chairperson of Families for Families. Families for Families is a peer support network for people with an acquired brain injury and their families. We've been running for 11 years now. It's purely volunteer based. Everybody's a volunteer. We don't get funding from the government. It's whatever we can fundraise. But it is definitely a need in our community.
So it's a support network, isn't it?
It's a support network, yeah. So we call it a peer support network. So we run workshops, we run social activities, we offer support, whether it's by phone call, face-to-face. We run monthly groups. We do some social lunches so people can get together in a safe space and just communicate and just have an outing.
Yes.
Workshops, we sometimes have guest speakers. Other times our members share their story, and that's always quite powerful.
Yes. So is it set schedule for Families, or is this a kind of like a fly-by-night sort of a deal where, sometimes you might have 3 events on in a week, and other times there might be like 2 weeks without anything? What's the deal with that?
Okay, so we do have a set calendar for the year. So we run for each of the groups we've got. We've got one in the south, one in the west, a couple in the north. We've got some regional groups. They meet once a month for 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, sometimes we'll have people from different organisations come and talk to them about what they offer, answer questions. And as well as that, we have a social lunch group once a month that's held at the OG Hotel every time. Maybe every couple of months we'll have a dinner somewhere. And so we sort of tend to decide that we decide that, then put out a flyer. We do a monthly newsletter, and that's where all our flyers for that month go on. And then we do a few events, like we've just had a movie afternoon. We've got an annual dinner coming up. And then other things that'll just be someone's thought of something and we'll have a go.
That's all for this week. If you want to contact us, email us at info@anewyou.au. See you next week.